Prior to this season, there were a lot of questions about the Jacksonville Jaguars. I'll tell you where we have already received answers and where we're still looking for more on this edition of Locked On Jaguars.
You are Locked On Jaguars, your daily Jacksonville Jaguars podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
It is, without a question, your team every day here on Locked On Jaguars. We thank you for making us your first listen. I am Tony Wiggins, the host of the Locked On Jaguars podcast that you can find wherever you get those podcasts, whether you watch or listen. We will be right there each and every day so you don't miss an episode like our everydayers who we appreciate, and we want to shout them out. And if you're new, we'll shout you out too, and hopefully we'll give you a reason to come back here each and every day. You can also find our newsletters at lockedonpodcast.com/newsletters for even more information about our network, our channel, and around the Locked On Podcast Network. All right, I've been a credentialed member of the media for over 2 decades here in Jacksonville, and I like to believe that I have the pulse on the team and can give you some good opinions. Some you agree with, some you won't. We'll tell you right now what we're going to talk about today to give you more things to agree or disagree with. At the end of the show, why that call? I'm going to walk through this once again like I did yesterday and probably the day prior to that on the post-game show to tell you why Liam Cohen made certain calls. Biggest questions that are remaining for the Jacksonville Jaguars that have been unanswered. We'll go through that right in the middle of the show. But we're going to start at the very top. What solutions have we seen? We talked so much about not identifying problems, but finding solutions. And that was the mantra, or the mantra, if you will, whatever way you want to say it. Coming into this season is one of the things that were integral in how this organization was going to change, how they moved, and how they got from one place to another. And one thing that we noticed was in the past, things would go wrong, and then we would fix those things, and then the following week, something else would go wrong. And the Jaguars would lose games in different ways, but it was always something that we categorize as the same. Basically, they'll find a new way of losing games. That was the same thing each and every week. So they were different ways, but in essence, it was the same thing. Well, year over year, one problem the Jaguars had is they couldn't find a center. So I'm going to go through some things right now that were issues that we thought we needed to find solutions for, and the center is one of them. Robert Hansy can play. The stats have proved it out. I watched the game. They're not getting pressure up the middle. The run game works. He's hiking the ball and getting to the next level, the second level, the double team. I even saw a play the other day where he was 20 yards down the field, maybe even 25 yards down the field, running full steam, bulldozing somebody out of bounds. So let's not go without acknowledging that. His play has also contributed to the run game being a lot better. The Jaguars can run it when they want to and seemingly run it when they have to. And that's something that we have also said was super, super important. And it just happens to be the first thing that Liam Cohen mentioned the other day. Well, not the other day, but when he took this team over. We need to break the huddle and they need to see us. And we need to be able to run the ball. So that has happened. More chunk plays and explosives. The Jaguars are a team that has multiple players that when they get the ball in their hands, they are very, very explosive. Both running backs, maybe even all three of them, but at least to this point, you've seen Bashaw Tootin as well as the starter Travis Etienne have explosive plays. You've also seen the ability of the team to use their receivers' ability to get open quickly as a way to matriculate the ball down the field and answer scoring drives by the other team. You've also seen in 2 games a propensity to be Johnny on the spot in the turnover department, whether it's because you're playing through the whistle, guys are getting their hands on balls, understanding what they need to be doing, where they need to be doing it. And then there's also been pressure on the quarterback. May have not resulted in a bunch of sacks, but it has resulted in a bunch of pressure. Joe Burrow was taken off the field for a reason, and then his replacement was also harassed enough that he threw 3 interceptions. So there are things that are better. There are a number of offensive weapons that make contributions. Brenton Strange is a good football player. the situational awareness of, okay, we need to score here, we need to answer here. They're never out of it in down and distance situations, although some penalties have hit them to the point where they could actually make that a lot easier on themselves. So if we stop it right there, there are a lot of things that we didn't know and some things that we wanted to see improved that have actually happened. So when folks tell me, when I'm talking about the game or doing a podcast or a post-game show about the game, and they say, well, look, man, this is way better than what we expected. They're not lying. It is to some people. Or it's way better than what we're used to. I'll deal with it because somebody said the Bengals were Super Bowl contenders. I think people thought the Bengals could beat anybody on any given day, but I think you can never say a team is Super Bowl defender, that they're Super Bowl contenders when they have multiple big problems. Like, they've always had a bad offensive line, and they still do, but their defense is also terrible. You can't have both of those things happen and be considered a Super Bowl contender, especially not in the AFC, regardless of who your quarterback and your receivers are. But I will agree that the Bengals are one of those teams that they're like Kentucky in the SEC. You mess around, they're going to come in there and put something on you. But nobody thinks Kentucky is Georgia or the Alabama teams or the LSU teams that we're used to. Stop it if that's what you're saying. You're not. So that's where the Bengals are right now. The Bengals have been they went to the Super Bowl, yeah, but other than that, they ain't done much in the last 5 years. So let's not pretend that they aren't the laughing stock of the league when it comes to player development and drafting, because they are. But I will say the Jaguars have improved an awful lot in a lot of areas where people really, really wanted to see them improve. Even Trevor Lawrence. Trevor has improved. You can see the improvement. You can see the pre-snap stuff. You can see all of that. But they're 1-1 for a reason. And the 1-1 brings up a lot of questions. My answer to anyone that says, man, this is better than we thought, I don't look at things that way. It's difficult to take that macro versus micro. And even if you take macro, it comes back to individual games mattering. I'd never, ever, ever find a moral victory in a team losing a game that they pretty much dominated and should have won. I really don't do it when they lose to a backup quarterback who took over for their starter while that team was losing and the Jaguars were winning. And then there's people that say, man, Jake Brown did it to us before. I don't care about before. When he did it before, Doug Peterson was the coach. Trent Baalke was the GM. I don't care about any of that. So that leads to some questions that we have to answer about the why and how we communicate. Now, it's not going to be about social media posts, but it is going to be about me as a podcaster who have always sat here and said, I want to make fans smarter. That doesn't mean that I need fans to listen to me in order to engage. What that means is when I want you to be smarter, I don't want to ignore the things that you say and the reason why you say it. But we need to get some things clear. Telling me that the fans were leaving the game while they were leaving the game, and you have to know when you have a team down. The Jaguars are on the field. Regardless of how you feel about fandom, they are not paying attention to people leaving the game and allowing that to make decisions. So you can leave that part out of the conversation, because what that does is it takes us somewhere where we don't need to go. I don't care about any of that. I don't care about the past. I don't care about what Jake Browning did on Monday night 2.5 years ago. I don't care. I'm looking at the game the other day. They should have won. If you ever want to move forward, you got to let go of that past stuff. As much as it pains me to tell you that, keep that to yourself, because when you project that on other people, then that's when dialogue sometimes turns into monologue and things get cut off, because I'm trying to get a lot of people beyond and past that, not because I want you to just believe everything that I say or believe in just the optimism, but I'm just trying to tell you, man, it's going to make your head pop to keep thinking about the past when we're in a new future. I'll tell you some of the other biggest questions that have not been answered in just a second here on Locked On Jaguars. All right, today's show is sponsored and brought to you by Mazda. Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. Mazda delivers confidence with every ride, with more IIHS top safety pick awards than anyone else as of August 2025. From footwork to breathwork, athletes sweat all the details. Mazda brings the same intention to how we craft every model. You can feel Japanese craftsmanship in every detail, from the metallic accents to available Napa leather upholstery. You can make every day feel an everyday drive like anything, but from smooth handling to intuitive controls, Mazda is the absolute truth. With all-wheel drive standard in every crossover SUV, you can drive with confidence through almost any season. Like our players, we sweat every detail. That's right, because you make every move count more. That's right. Impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved. Today's show is also sponsored and brought to you by Monarch Money. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. When you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there's Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy to use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes and see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. I was paying for one subscription 3 times. Monarch Money caught it. Me and my wife saved money. Now she loves the app. That's right. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use the code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with the code LOCKEDONNFL. All right, shake, rattle, and roll here on Locked On Jaguars. That's what we do, man. We get it in. We shake up things, we let it rattle, and then we roll it right off our tongue, because I had a few back and forths with people on social media. We're going to talk about some big questions that we have. And I sort of encapsulated, if you will, I hope that's the right word, or sort of put in a big bottle some of the biggest things that I saw concerning fans that fans had to think about. I'm not telling people how to respond. I'm not telling folks what they should and shouldn't react to, but I will provide some perspective. And that's why I'm here. I get paid to do that. And that's exactly what I'm going to do. So we'll get to the call, the going for it on 4th down. And we're not doing it just to park there and to keep thinking about the past. We're going to do that in segment 3 to see if that's something that is going to be what they do in the future, that is an indicator of how they feel. And if it matches up with something that I have been saying since training camp about their personalities. But first, some of the biggest questions that people have, and that is what's going on with Trevor Lawrence and Brian Thomas Jr. I had some wild stuff sent to me by people, and I'm not going to address it. It's just too many mental gymnastics to go through a bunch of speculation. But here's what I will tell you in watching the tape. There are a lot of things that initially, like the interception over the middle the other day, that they said, that's not on Trevor. And then you have people break it down, and Dan Orlovsky broke it down, and I looked at it myself. And then even Liam Cohen, head coach Liam Cohen, talked about it in the post-game presser, where he take a look at it, and then he looked at it and he said that maybe Trevor led him a little bit. I think there's a disconnect between when you sit down on a route and when you lead a guy and allow him to keep going and catch the ball. That will go right into when a dude stops and you say he short arms it. It's easy for us to see that in slow motion. But short arming could be, I'm planning, my momentum is here. Now I see the ball over there and it's like, dang, but now I don't want to tip it, because if I tip it too hard, it's going to be a pick. And it appears to be fear, right? So I did this show yesterday called Duck and Smoke. And I think people kind of took it because I had Brian Thomas Jr. in the thumbnail and said that he looked like he was afraid. And maybe he's trying to protect himself, but he's doing it a little bit too much, because every ball catcher is taught at some point you're going to catch the ball, secure it, protect yourself, because you're going to get hit anyway. But it appears to be something, because this is all new. We saw it a little bit in training camp. These are stick throws. A lot of these throws are throws that you got to make where a guy can catch the ball, protect himself, and then even turn around and go. There was a slant the other day when it was 27-24. Brian Thomas Jr. went down when he caught it, and it looks like if he had just stayed up, he could have just kept running. So I'm starting to think that he's anticipating contact, which is a bad thing. But why? Is it because he's afraid? I can't answer that. Only the coach who said that they were going to talk about it with him and talk about what's going on. And then there was this thing that came up about his wrist that wasn't on the injury report, but doesn't have to be if he does not miss practice. So we'll clear that up. And people saying, coming up with conspiracy theories that he's trying to protect them or whatever. I will say that there's a little bit of truth as to why you would put him out there and put him in dependable situations if you know he has a little bit of anything bothering him, right? I think I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt and say they have to communicate better. Trevor has to know when he's sitting down, and BT has to trust that his quarterback isn't leading him into a collision. And even if he is leading him into a collision, he's going to have to figure out a way to catch the ball, do his job, and absorb that collision. I haven't wrestled or fought anybody in a long time. I got used to falling down when I did. I ain't used to it right now. If you slam me to the ground, it's going to feel like the worst thing ever. So it comes with getting used to it and understanding. Trevor does need to do a better job of putting the ball on a guy's body. That will allow him to absorb those hits. We saw it a little bit in preseason. We've seen it now. That does not absolve Brian Thomas Jr. of having to catch the ball. And then when you talk about bad body languages after balls that he believes are poorly thrown as a sign of him giving up or quitting, I would say I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt again and say that no, it's just you're seeing him frustrated. That's something that we used to see in practice when Blake Bortles was the quarterback. You haven't seen it with BT, and you haven't seen it with Trevor Lawrence. So now there's the possibility that a dude doesn't know when he's supposed to sit down. The quarterback is leading him when he should not be leading him. And I think all people involved probably have some responsibility, right? There's this other thing that's going on with Travis Hunter, what his role is and what it's supposed to be. We have not gotten the answer as what it's supposed to look like. And this is what I told people. He looks the part. He doesn't look out of, from an athletic standpoint, from a fear standpoint. Nah, he's got that. He has that. He has it more on defense. And this is where we go back to the draft. And I said, I think he should be a full-time corner with some time spent on offense, because it also appears that he's out of the game in some critical moments in the fourth quarter. When you're the second overall pick and they gave up a whole bunch of stuff, including 2 first-round picks, you can't be out of a game for an upstart team. You just can't do it. They got to find a way to have you on the field. Is it a little bit more of lack of familiarity because he spends some time in another room? Perhaps. Don't know the answer. But I will tell you, we also, 2 weeks into the season, still don't know what it's supposed to look like when it works with Travis Hunter. The closest thing I can tell you is a couple of defensive plays where he was neck and neck with the receiver, dislodged the ball. Those things looked very, very instinctive, and it aligns with what Liam Cohen said when someone asked him is why Travis was training more as a wide receiver than a corner. He said because he basically, in a nutshell, paraphrase him, he said it's what I've always said, because that dude can he can roll out of bed and play corner and blink his eyes and play corner. That's what he does. So that's why I think they could use him there. Not that Jarian Jones has played poorly. I think Tyson Campbell has in some big situations. But this is why I said what I said, because I never thought of him as a dude that if you put him at receiver, I couldn't project him being a top 7, top 8 wide receiver in the league, without including the optimism aspect. I can project him being a top 3 corner like that. So to get the maximum impact from him, you may need to see him a little bit more on defense, and maybe the tape shows that, and maybe the opponents that are coming up will allow that to happen. But we still have a lot of things to figure out. It would be much nicer if we were sitting in a situation when they were 2-0 trying to figure it out, as opposed to 0-2. But the Jags they're not the bad team that we thought, because it seems like things just kind of roll off and they move on to the next thing. So about that call that was made, the one where the Jaguars were up 27-24 inside of the red zone and decided to go for it on 4th down to ice the game, that's what we're going to talk about next. And I'm going to tell you why it's not as problematic as some of y'all are making it out to be. We'll talk about it here in a second on Locked On Jaguars. First and foremost, man, it is football season, and it is all about FanDuel. The action is here. It's already started. It's hot and heavy, man. And they're making sure with FanDuel, you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. FanDuel is for real, man. And if you like to start the game knowing what the odds are, or waiting until it kind of plays out a little bit and then doing it in-game or in-game, well, FanDuel can help you with that as well, and you can put some Skrilla in your pocket. So are you ready to play? If so, download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. All right, the call that was seen around Duval that has been talked about ad nauseum, I'm going to address it again as I did already. I like the call by Liam Cohen, because it matches the all gas, no brakes mantra that you have heard, or at least heard, seen, or heard inferred that they were going to be. They're going to be aggressive. They're going to try to win. Unfortunately for people upset that it didn't work, that want to overlook the bogus PI call, that's fine, because you didn't win or lose this game because of one decision. You didn't lose the game because of the poor call there, and then what a lot of people think is Devin Lloyd not being down. He actually was. There was a still photo showing his knee was on the ground. But it was so eerily similar to Miles Jack. People said, here we go again, we're getting screwed, right? But not one thing that happened, not one penalty, not one failed conversion on a 4th down or decision, or it wasn't one thing. It never is in football. There are too many plays to pinpoint it on one thing. I like what he did. And the reason why is because a coach has to learn about his team in real time, in games that matter, not preseason, not practice. This is how we're going to coach. And someone says he trusts guys too much that haven't proven anything. How can he ever trust them if he never puts them in a position to prove it? And then the trust that the person spoke of is really, really one-sided. The one-sided part of it is he's trusting too many people. You're talking about offense. I think he trusted his defense. I think that he's trusted his defense that they could keep a team from going 90 yards way better than they could keep a team from going 65 or 60 yards. That's what I think. I think he trusted his teams that there's a backup quarterback over there, or perhaps I'm wrong. Perhaps he didn't trust his defense could stop them from scoring a touchdown, so he needed to make sure he win the game. I think what he decided was, I'm taking it out of I'm going to try to win it, and I'm going to take it out of all of that. I'm going to take it out of the hands of, the football gods or whatever. I'm going to just go out and we're going to be proactive. And if we're going to win, we're going to win, or if we're not going to win, but we're not going to do it on our knees. We're going to win on our feet. So you got to be careful how you frame him trusting people too much, when he's got to learn whether or not he can actually trust them by putting them in those positions. He also saw, outside of, or even with those 3 interceptions, he saw this dude carving up his defense, right? And then there's this other thing. There's this other thing that says, well, there was 18 seconds left after they scored. Do we know that it would have gone the same way had he kicked it off? So we're looking at the 18 seconds that were left on the clock, and we're assuming it will probably be more if they win a shorter distance, because somebody said that if you kick the field goal and then they score a touchdown, they go up by 1, you still have 18 seconds left. Well, if you kick the field goal, you wouldn't have had 18 seconds left. So we're looking at the end result of a play we didn't like, saying that everything about that would have been the same had they done something different. I would much rather a coach say, you know what? We're going to win or lose based on what we failed to do, as opposed to being afraid that somebody else is going to do anything. And then this is the other thing. The person told me that you got to have a better feel for the game. I don't think there's anybody with a better feel for the game than the players and the coaches that are playing it. As much as I like to think my presence in the press box means that much, or in my living room or my great room looking at an 86-inch TV while writing notes down that I take all game, that I don't sit here so I can't judge everything by one play or the end of the game, but the entire picture, I don't think that matters much to anybody. And as much as I love fans, when you're at home, and they waving you to cheer, they still got to play. We aren't there with their preparation. When he says it's 100% go and the analytics show it, folks, somebody said, and this is the same guy, by the way, and I'm addressing it because he's an everydayer and he was super, super respectful. And I think he had some valid points that I need to explain. So to give you an idea of how I'm yoked and why I believe what I believe. It's not that I'm lining up and being a company man like somebody who got blocked said. That's not what I'm doing. What I'm doing is we're 2 games into a regime, and I don't think questioning that is wrong. I do, however, think questioning it with certain assumptions is incorrect. I ain't got no problem telling you what I think about what somebody's doing. Why would I? What's going to happen to me? Nothing. So what I'm telling you is we can have a difference of opinion, but don't accuse me of being something that I'm not, and especially something that I despise, because that will end all dialogue between us. So let's just break it down. The feel for the situation, and the person told me that the analytics doesn't allow, it should be there to support you, but it doesn't allow you to understand that your team and the ebbs and flow of the game. I would totally agree with that. But we're making the assumption that they totally went with the analytics and ignored what he felt about his team, what he felt about the situation, what he felt in the moment of being in the heat of the game. We're assuming that it was all analytics and that the rest of that stuff had nothing to do with it. And that's the part that I give pushback on. I think the analytics did support it. I think it was 100% go. And I think the reason why he did it had a lot to do with a lot of the things that we've already discussed. That nobody with 2 minutes and some change left is sitting there thinking, okay, if they score, we can get the ball back. Because if that's the case, the Jaguars would have been calling timeouts. They didn't until the very end. I just believe it came down to making a play, and I think they believe they made the play, and I believe that at the end of the day, there was a bad call. The game is over at that point. And I know it doesn't come down to one play, but in a vacuum, when we're looking at that particular drive, I actually think Travis did what he was coached to do. I think 98% of the people would not have called that pass interference. I think the Jaguars should be 2-0. But I think even if they were 2-0, we would still be talking about the numerous problems and the issues that we saw, because we want them to be better and better and better. And that gets me to Trevor Lawrence. There were hospital ball tweets all over the place yesterday. And there were people that go all the way to the other side and go, oh, like Trevor Lawrence has to be perfect. Nobody's saying Trevor Lawrence has to be perfect. Has he been anything close to perfect since he's been in the league? No. And we have given him mulligan after mulligan after mulligan after mulligan because of what we thought was inept coaching, right? So we're giving this new coaching stuff a chance. And we're giving Trevor Lawrence a new chance, right? You know what those really, really good quarterbacks that we compare him to and we think he could be, you know what they do? They make bad passes every now and then. Trust me, I saw them all in all of the hospital ball tweets. But they don't play for you. They don't play for the Jaguars. And there are some times that Trevor might do something that he needs to be better at. And if y'all think he doesn't, then I'm not the one for you. And if y'all think that we can't comment on it and we can't talk about it because this team is trying to make a new identity and trying to find solutions, then I don't know what you're here for, because the bottom line is he does have to be better. And when you're the Jaguars and when you're Trevor Lawrence and you have things to prove, I got bad news for you. It might not be fair, but you ain't got the wiggle room to make a bad throw like Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson or Patrick Mahomes. Not when you're being compared to those guys and you haven't accomplished anything like they have. That's the point that I'm trying to make. Every criticism isn't hate. But at some point, the Jaguars are going to depend on their best players or the people that they believe are their best players to be better. You can't be dropping balls if you're Brian Thomas Jr. You can't be not understanding lead him or sit, or is he sitting down if you're both Brian Thomas Jr. and Trevor Lawrence. In a close game, you can't bobble a snap. Can't run beyond the line at 5 yards and throw the ball and still be arguing with the refs when you need to move on to the next play. On the play when you need to get a third down to keep the drive going, can't throw a high ball to Diamond Brown. More importantly, you can't have all those things happen at one time if you want to be great. But if you want us to sit here and say his ceiling is Jared Goff, then fine, we'll accept mistakes. If that's what you want. Or do you want to be great? Or do you want him to be great? Then you're going to have to accept a little bit of criticism, and you're going to have to accept higher expectations. My kids expect me to be a whole bunch better dude than the dude that lived next door to me. And he's a pretty nice guy too, but that's not the standard of my house. My house is the standard that I set. And that's what we need to understand. People are going to put Trevor Lawrence through, and Liam Cohen, and Brian Thomas Jr., and everybody else. I hope that helps y'all a little bit. Get cleared up why I think the way that I think. You can find out more about how I think by watching the national show that I'm a part of, Locked On NFL. Locked On NFL comes on twice a day, early in the morning with Tyler, the madman rolling. He'll wake you up like a double shot of espresso, and then you slide back through the barbershop where we talk to national hosts from around the National Football League about all things NFL. Thank you for joining me for these 32 and a half minutes. We'll see you next time here on Locked On Jaguars.